Hello everyone and welcome to Rad Chat, founded by me, Julka-Anderson.
And me, Jo McNamara. So Rad Chat is a forward-thinking global knowledge hub where healthcare professionals can advance their expertise in radiotherapy and oncology. Unlike traditional academic resources, we blend real-world experience, expert insights, best practice, and of course, most importantly, patient perspectives.
We make advanced knowledge engaging and accessible, supporting continuous learning and professional development without compromising patient care or personal time. By providing insights into both technical skills and career development, helping you progress confidently in your field and shape your professional future.
Just to let you know, our episodes may contain sensitive and difficult topics that you may find distressing or triggering.
Okay, so this is episode 197, which is part of the Living With and Beyond Cancer series, where we will be hearing from our guest Carly Moosah about her experience with breast cancer, BRCA gene testing, and Plexaa Bloom43 device. Hi Carly, how are you?
Hi, I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Great, good to have you here. Would you mind just introducing yourself and telling our guests a bit about you?
Yeah, so I'm Carly and I am the patient champion of what you mentioned, Bloom43, which is part of Plexaa. It's a medical device and a free app all around breast surgery and very specifically kind of the power of prehab and rehab around these surgeries. I am also a breast cancer advocate. I do a lot of advocacy since my own diagnosis, and I co-host a BRCA support group in London and do a lot of BRCA awareness as well.
If you feel comfortable, Carly, would you mind telling us how you were diagnosed?
Yeah, absolutely. I have had such an awareness of breast cancer. So I always kind of have to start with the story that my mum had already had a breast cancer diagnosis, primary. Her cancer returned. She was secondary breast cancer, and she died of secondary breast cancer 10 years before my diagnosis. But also there was already a history of breast cancer before my mum's diagnosis because I never met her mum. So my maternal grandmother also had died of secondary breast cancer before my mum had children. So I was always aware of breast cancer. I was raising awareness of breast cancer. In fact, in October 2019, I was doing, I guess, my bit as someone who had lost someone they loved so much to breast cancer. I was raising awareness. I was wearing a pink bra in Notting Hill with loads of other amazing people, and had no idea at the time that I had breast cancer. In the July of 2019, my older sister, who is my half-sister on my dad's side of the family, so we do not share a mum, she was diagnosed with late-stage ovarian cancer, and it came as a massive shock to all of us. And she was only 43 at the time. She, because of her diagnosis, was tested for the BRCA gene mutations, and she discovered that she carried the BRCA1 gene mutation. It's a little bit back and forwards because 3 years earlier than this, I went to try and get tested to see if I carried the BRCA gene mutation. And I went along thinking I would get tested that day. And because it was my mum and her mum only at that point, with any cancer in my family, they said there would be a lot younger. There would be a lot more young breast and ovarian cancer in your family. So we won't test you today. So I walked away thinking, okay, I've done my bit in terms of trying, seeing. I felt really kind of quite good about myself in that I'd been proactive and advocating, but I basically wasn't tested. And so then obviously my sister finds out she carries the gene mutation. And they said at the time, it's really likely it's come from your dad's side of the family because my dad is of Ashkenazi Jewish heritage and it's really prevalent with that community of people. So I was going to get tested, but sadly I was on a chemo ward with my sister and I kind of felt this really uncomfortable feeling under my armpit, and I went to kind of have a feel, thinking, did I pull a muscle that morning working out? And there was a really big swelling under my armpit. And obviously being on a chemo ward, it was, enough of a reason to be like, I think I should get this checked. My sister then had a feel, was like, yeah, you should get that checked. She also got her nurse that day on the chemo ward to have a feel, who said, yeah, you should get this checked. So like, just because of your family history. So because of all that, I managed to get an appointment that day to see a GP. I really, really didn't leave, any time. I was like, right, let's go. But I really knew a lot I thought I knew a lot about breast cancer. Turns out I didn't know much at all. But I thought pain and that, I thought it'd be okay. But I went to the GP. They said they could feel 3 swollen lymph nodes, and they said that I would need to go for an ultrasound. And it was on the ultrasound that they noticed that there was like maybe you could never feel a lump by hand, basically, with my diagnosis. But they noticed something that looked like it could be cancerous, biopsy, MRI, and I got a diagnosis of triple negative breast cancer, stage 2, grade 3. Basically, it was quite quick. It was a week after, actually, finding the lump, the swelling, I shouldn't say.
Thank you so much for sharing. I can imagine having kind of already lost your mum, knowing that your grandmother also died of breast cancer, that was quite a scary time having that diagnosis. What was going through your head at that stage?
Oh, I'll be honest, I was completely, a cancer diagnosis is a shock at any point to anybody. You hear those words, you're like floored. Because my mum had been 54 when she was diagnosed, and her mum had been kind of close to 50. I think in the back of my head, I'd always lived with this like thought that breast cancer might come into my life. But I know it sounds really naive now, but I kind of thought, I've got time. I was 37. I was really feeling healthy and good, and a bit more tired than usual, I'd say. But otherwise, so to get diagnosed at 37 and with that history with my mum, it was terrifying. The only thing, obviously, I hate that my sister had her diagnosis too, but I do feel like she provided me with so much support in those early kind of diagnosis days, just like, because she was in it already, and it was just, and I'd been with her to all her chemo, so there was a lot of things going on that were like, I didn't have to go and sit on a chemo ward not knowing what they looked like, and that kind of stuff, because I'd been doing it with her. There was, so yeah, I really very, very quickly was like, and again, I know that it doesn't work like this, but I was just like, I am not going to die from this. Like, I'm not going to die. Everything in my head and my approach was, we're just going to get the treatment done. My story is different. My diagnosis is different. It came from being a BRCA carrier. So actually, like, I was able to kind of compartmentalize a bit my mum and her mum, because I was like, no, my cancer diagnosis has come because of this, because I carry this gene mutation, which I didn't know at the time of my diagnosis, but it was very, very kind of likely, they said. And actually, with testing, it does take some time before you find out. So I didn't actually find out until I was kind of already in my chemo, starting my chemo.
What treatment did you go on to have then, Carly?
So again, and it's funny because, yeah, all these things did help me mentally. Like, even my treatment plan was so different to what my mum had gone through for her primary. So because I was triple negative, which is a very aggressive form of breast cancer and quite common with BRCA gene mutations and younger women, it meant that I started my treatment plan with chemotherapy, and that wasn't what happened with my mum. She had her surgery, so in my head, all these things were like, okay, we're different. Everything's going differently. I had 16 rounds of chemotherapy, alongside the timing of my diagnosis in December 2019. A paper had just, I think, come out, or just like very early stages of them realizing that an immunotherapy drug called pembrolizumab was shown to be really beneficial with early stage triple negative breast cancer. It was already being used with later stage, but my oncologist happened to be someone involved in that paper and that work. So I was able to get pembrolizumab as well alongside my treatment, which was amazing. It's obviously a more drugs and more treatment to have, but I just felt like, just give me anything and everything possible. So I did that, and I did, again, because of taking the immunotherapy, I did the 12 weeklies, paclitaxel and carboplatin first, whereas often they give AC first. That came after for me. It was so intense. That was 6 months of real kind of digging deep. I found chemo really hard. It also came at a terrible time globally because there was a pandemic, and so I had to go to a lot of my treatment alone. My kids, who I wanted to shield from a lot of the treatment stuff, and I kind of timed my treatments before lockdown happened so that I'd be like well for them on the weekends, or well as I could be. Suddenly they were not at school ever. They were at home being homeschooled. So there was a lot in that 6 months of like not being able to shield them from a lot of the kind of harsher stuff. And I really struggled with my neutrophils during treatment. So I had to have a few hospital stays, a blood transfusion. So yeah, it was tough, but I ticked them off each time I got to do a treatment. I very much was like focused on getting those 16 ticks and getting through. And then after that, I had, because I was BRCA, and I found out I was BRCA, I had a double mastectomy and reconstruction with my own tummy tissue, which I'm still kind of, my mind is still blown about the surgery I had because it's just so incredible. And I was in hospital for a week, again in lockdown, no visitor, tricky and tough. And then it was all very kind of quick to, after surgery, getting back to treatment. And that's kind of when I started my radiotherapy and was back on immunotherapy. I don't think I've ever felt so awful in my whole entire life. Like, it was just a bombardment at that point of like trying to get over the chemo and feel better, then having this huge surgery, which was just a complete, hip to hip scar. Just so much going on with my body, and then suddenly you're going every day for radiotherapy. People were saying, it's just radiotherapy. You'll be fine. You've done the chemo. It's just radiotherapy. And I actually really, really was passionate about coming on today because it's not just radiotherapy. And I felt really like, I don't know, am I really weak because I'm struggling? And actually, yeah, it was a really, really dark time, all of that. And that was when the team that I was under when I was having my radiotherapy was so incredible. One day I arrived, I think it was around the third or fourth radiotherapy treatment. I arrived, felt fine, walked through the doors and was overwhelmed with nausea, and basically ended up being sick in the bathroom there. And it was likely I had a bug. I don't know. Like, it was terrible. Anyway, they plied me with ondansetron, and I was lying on the bed in the main radiotherapy, the head of the unit, and she was like, making me feel better and things. I did eventually have my treatment that day, which also just feels incredibly brutal in hindsight. Like, the last thing you want to do is go lie there and have it. But I think I understand, and I understand right that they just can't miss one once you're in it. So yeah, there was a lot that was so horrible. And then I remember just getting home being like, oh my God, I've got a vomiting bug. I've just had to have radiotherapy. But there's no time to even be ill. Like, this is crazy. But the lady whose room I lay on the bed in and got better, I basically just broke down to her and said, I'm not doing well. Like, this is so hard. I feel so bad. And she said, I really think you'd benefit from some oncology counselling. And so thanks to her, in stepped this most incredible counsellor who it was just the most divine timing ever. And I'm so grateful that she kind of suggested that and then I was able to get counselling at that point. But yeah, radiotherapy, and then carried on with immunotherapy for a bit longer. 15 months of treatment, and because it's triple negative breast cancer, once treatment is finished, it's you don't get to take anything else to kind of try and hold it at bay. So I am coming up to 5 years though since treatment finished in February.
Thank you for sharing. It's a very long journey for you. So many different aspects of treatment, and I think you highlighted as well that a lot of patients or people say to us that when they come to radiotherapy, everything kind of just clicks and hits them. And obviously we just get you to lie on a bed, ignore us as we move you millimeters and talk some random numbers and stuff over you. And then a lot of people are kind of left there. Obviously we leave you, we can see you on the cameras, but you're with your thoughts, and then you're just having to get through the treatment until you finish. I think a lot of people say that to us on Rad Chat as well.
Like I just had this surgery and I had no nipples suddenly, and I'm trying to get my head around that I've just got these circular disc scars, and you're just having to strip off with and it's not like I say, everyone I met that I met during my radiotherapy treatment was so lovely. It's just, you are just it. Especially if you've had that 6 months of chemo before, like I had, and not even especially actually, regardless, I just think I was just very weak. I was very physically weak when I came to radiotherapy. I was not good.
You make a really good point, Carly. If I had to go into a room now and expose my breasts to any healthcare professional, even though I'm quite okay with my body, I would still find that difficult. I would find it very exposing. If I had to walk over to a bed, I would still do the whole, I'll cover my nipples until I absolutely have to show you that. But to kind of do that, but when you don't even feel like it's your body, I think is really insightful for us to think about, as healthcare professionals, that walk across a room when you don't feel like that body is yours, or you're really insecure about it, or you're coming to terms with everything that has happened to your body. I think is something that we really need to appreciate as well.
No, it's exactly that, isn't it? And also with the breast surgery, I had lymph nodes removed, and suddenly I'm having to lie there with my arms. There was so much of it that was exposing and uncomfortable. And this is the other thing, when people say, oh, it's just radiotherapy. I was exhausted, and it built that exhaustion. I actually was speaking to a really good friend who's just had brain radiotherapy. She said, I'm floored by it, way more than I thought I would be. I said, this is because I don't think it's talked about enough that radiotherapy can lead to this like extreme fatigue, and you can get these other side effects. We all kind of know about the skin, and I put on my aloe vera religiously, and my skin actually was fine. It really was okay. I was really lucky in that respect, because I remember my mum showing me her skin at the time, and maybe that's, I don't know, a time thing, that maybe it's improved, it doesn't, because I know now not everyone has the tattoos. I've got 3 whole wide worlds, as Rachel and Friends got, didn't she? Little got 3 whole wide worlds, but some people don't get tattoos now. So it's changing, and it's amazing and improving.
Yeah, we have a bit of kit now called surface guided radiotherapy. So it's essentially using light fields onto the skin surface so that you don't necessarily have to align a patient with those tattoos, and it's just as accurate and reproduceable. So it's a great bit of
patient experience, right? And taking into account everything that's going on for them, to not have to give people these permanent marks that are forever reminding them of treatment. It's incredible. Yeah.
Carly, you're nearly 5 years on. How are you managing with any late effects or mental health issues, things like that now?
So in terms of my mental health, it's pretty good, I think, most days. In terms of the things I live with, I would say I am quite a positive person, generally, and potentially a kind of very naive optimist about life a lot of the time. But I do think it's really important to kind of also make space for the things that you do, that are left behind after cancer, and I had to have my ovaries removed, preventative because of carrying BRCA and my increased chances of getting ovarian cancer, so surgical menopause. I've really started to recently think of it as more of a chronic illness now, and the things that I kind of deal with day to day. Thinking of my energy a lot more and how that is, and knowing that if I have a really fun night, it's just gonna impact me in a different way to maybe my friends who aren't yet fully menopausal, or I got an underactive thyroid from my treatment from immunotherapy. So, there's a lot of things that go on that wasn't my health pre-cancer. But I accept them, and I kind of surrender to the fact that I am a little bit achier, and I have my tools that help. But generally, I'm really good, and I'm really and a lot of that does come down to, I think, like the community and amazing support within the community that I found, of people that kind of get. Well, as the tagline goes for the charity I'm trustee of, Cancer in Common, we get it because we've got it. I think that community support is invaluable, which is, kind of like I said, why I do the BRCA stuff. I think just these conversations are so important and really help. You can kind of just, badmouth menopause together.
I'll join that. So, Carly, tell us a bit more about BRCA, because obviously you said you host lots of support groups and you support people with having those conversations and those discussions. Tell us a little bit about that, and potentially for any listeners thinking about going for testing, how do they get it? What conversations do they need to have? How can they advocate for themselves?
So obviously, like I said earlier, I didn't get tested on the NHS when I first went. And had I been tested when I did go, it would have changed a lot, because although some of my other siblings haven't tested, my older sister is a real doer and a researcher, and she would have 100% been tested. She just would have done, and she would have known she carried it, and she would have been being screened. And the ripple effect of that is that she would not have been diagnosed with stage 4B ovarian cancer. And she's doing really well, but as we know with cancer, like the later the stage, it's just more complex, right? I would have known, I would have maybe been able to take preventative action before my diagnosis. The things that it doesn't change, and this is why, there does need to be so much more conversation around BRCA, it is, I want people to know, but it has a knock-on effect, because it impacts on your whole family. And basically, you get BRCA passed down from a parent. So when I say it came from my dad's side of the family, it means that there's a 50-50 chance that all of his children will have it. So they might not, right? But without testing, you don't know. So me and my sister both have it. Now, I've got 2 children. It means that there's a 50-50 chance that I've passed it on to them. Sorry, this is the bit that always gets me a bit. Ultimately, when I found out I carried BRCA, even though it came after my cancer diagnosis, I felt a deeper grief, because in my head, cancer had an end date, whereas BRCA, my kids are now 12 and 10, so it's not a conversation for a while. They can't even get tested until they're 18 if they want to get tested. But it's something that hangs over, right? So that's why the support group's just amazing, because it's not going anywhere, BRCA. I've got it. And there's lots of conversations to be had around that. I don't feel any guilt about the situation. I actually feel really empowered that I do know, and that these are the conversations that we will be able to have with our kids, and hopefully then they can be empowered. The other thing about the BRCA is lots of people that kind of come to our meetups and stuff, they're having children via, you'll know the science, via IVF to only implant the eggs that don't have the BRCA. So ultimately, they are, by knowing they've got it, they're stopping that in their family. So that is just incredible, because so many people that come to my meetups, like, they have lost so many family members because of these gene mutations. It really does increase your chances of getting cancer. So I do feel really strongly about. I wish everyone could be tested, right? At the minute, that's not how it works. If you are of Jewish ancestry, your chances of carrying the BRCA gene mutation, I believe it's 1 in 400 for the general population, but it's 1 in 40 if you have Ashkenazi Jewish heritage. So at the minute with the NHS, they have been doing a testing where if you have one Jewish grandparent, you live in England and you're over the age of 18, they would test you. So they would have tested me back gone, because I've got 2 Jewish grandparents on my dad's side. I would just say, if you are listening and you do have ovarian and breast cancer in your family history, or if you're of Ashkenazi Jewish ancestry, just maybe start a conversation and see. And if you can't get tested in the NHS, this is the other thing, is there are ways to pay for it. I just didn't go down that route because I just took it as I was okay hearing I didn't need it. So I just walked away thinking, okay, I don't need it, I'm cool. But little did I know it was a ticking time bomb, right, for cancer. So there are ways to test. And I know people that have found out they carry it via like these kind of DNA, kits that you can do to find out where you're from in the world, So it's, there are ways.
Thank you for sharing. I think testing and screening is a really difficult conversation in so many communities. I did see on socials today you posted about a big project you're part of.
Yeah.
Is that with AstraZeneca? Yeah. Would you mind telling us a bit about that?
So, I've just been they've done a global campaign. I hope I get all the countries right. I believe it's Australia, Malaysia, Mexico, and the UK. So I was interviewed by a very good friend of mine, actually, who is one of the co-founders of a charity called BRCA Chat, Kristen. And it's just exactly what it says. It's a global conversation. It's talking about our experiences with BRCA. And every single country, I believe, is a different story. So in Australia, I think it's a man talking about carrying BRCA and being a BRCA mutation carrier, and some of it, the experience of his family, maybe having had some cancer diagnosis. I'm not 100% sure. Then they're just all different stories linked to BRCA. And obviously mine is coming from the fact that I've had a breast cancer diagnosis because of it, and I have a family member who's also had an ovarian cancer diagnosis. So yeah, it's really good to be a part of that, and obviously just to open up these conversations and hope so much that it does lead to someone kind of going, oh, my mum was only 40 or 30 something when she was diagnosed with breast cancer, and she's doing really well now, but maybe it's worth us looking into this. And, those kind of things, it can be make such a difference.
Carly, can I ask you a deep question? So obviously you've been almost coming up to 5 years, since your diagnosis, your family history, talking about your children. Obviously breast cancer awareness month happens every year. How do you manage with the fatigue, I guess, of constantly talking about what you've been through and trying to get other people to listen, but also maybe from my experience, when I speak to people and they say, no, I don't want to get tested for something, I think, why?
Yeah.
And how do you deal with your emotions of all of this? Obviously all year round, but also in October every year.
Again, I think having had a lot of therapy, I am very much in the knowledge that you cannot control anyone else's actions. You can only really, it's like the oxygen mask, like you've got to look after yourself. And so what others do, I can't help, but what I do believe is I am okay to share my story. I feel like, and I was quite kind of shy before my breast cancer diagnosis. A lot of positives have changed from that, including this stuff. Like, I've almost found my voice. I found a purpose that, was unexpected. And so I just focus on that. And I think that by doing that, and the messages I get back from people and the impact, of the times I've had messages from people who have found their cancer because of something I've shared, or spoken about, discovered they carry BRCA because they saw something I shared about the Jewish BRCA screening. So I just keep doing that. I think that massively helps. Just keeping on my path and knowing that every conversation can have a ripple effect. And I obviously do this for a living too. I'm patient. I talk about breast cancer and breast surgery day in, day out. A lot of the time, I forget that I've had a diagnosis when I do that now. There's a lot of times where I don't feel like the spotlight is necessarily there. These chats are when it's different. These chats are when I'm like, oh, but also they're very healing, because whatever comes up, and it can be so surprising, right? The things that you remember or talk about. I think that it's a good opportunity to kind of go, oh, that actually maybe I need to reflect on that or journal on that a bit. And my day-to-day work is really feels like I'm helping others, because it's all there to help others having their breast surgeries now, as opposed to me. Like, I had my breast surgery. Good. I am very body grateful. I've worked to get to these good spaces, and I just want to help others to reach that point too.
So Carly, you mentioned prehabilitation as someone who is a huge advocate for prehab and rehab and personalised care. Tell us a little bit about kind of your experiences with prehabilitation and what you're doing at the moment.
So, I love that you're passionate, Jo, as well. That's so good to hear. So I met Sahil, who is the founder of Bloom43. We actually spoke about 3 weeks after my double mastectomy. A mutual friend put us in touch, and he texted, and we organised a phone call. I was very excited to talk to him, hear what he was up to, but also just to speak to a plastic surgeon, because, I just had this really big surgery and I didn't have my plastic surgeon on text. So, it felt like, oh my God, access, I can ask any question that kind of comes to mind. We basically just started a friendship, and he was telling me about this research that he had done into supraphysiological preconditioning ahead of mastectomy, ahead of breast surgeries, in fact. And basically, I am no scientist, so to break it down, it was research into preheating the skin the night before people were having their breast surgeries, and then kind of seeing how that impacted that preparation of the skin. And what he found, I think, is, he said himself, almost surprised him, because it was so positive in terms of less wound healing complications, shorter hospital stays, less kind of follow-ups and things like that. So he kind of did the research and then was like, well, we need to do something with this. And that is where kind of we're at now, which is years and years for him of developing this device, which has launched in America, isn't actually here in the UK yet, but hopefully coming soon. But alongside that, so I came on board as Patient Champion a few years ago now. Over 2 years. After talking for 3 years before that as friends, and just kind of, like I say, I could text him and say, so I've got my phase 2 surgery coming up and they're talking about nipple nubs. What do you think about them? All those kind of conversations. It became official as Patient Champion a few years ago. And very much, it was just the most amazing role for him to ask me to kind of come on board for, because it meant bringing the patient voice to the development of this device. It meant getting patient experiences of every step of how this could work in terms of where they were at the night before surgery, because you wear it for 3 hours the night before surgery, speaking about what it would have meant to them. And every single person was like, I just didn't feel prepared. Or I was so anxious, doing something like that would have helped me, or I wanted to do anything possible and I didn't know what to do. So all of these chats that we were having about the device made Sahil go, God, we need to do more. We need to really look at this, because in his experience as a plastic surgeon, everyone was asking him the same question too. What can I do? What can I do to prepare? No one was really being told enough. So we have developed an app which is free and it's global and it's available, in so many countries, and it has an unbelievable amount of information on there, from videos to articles, to a whole prehab program 4 weeks before your surgery with really simple things to incorporate or change or understand about this power of prehab and how much of a difference it can make. And not just a difference to your recovery, your mindset. Like I said, I went into my surgery 4 weeks after my chemo finished feeling terrible. But if I'd been able to do something, I was so nervous about wound healing complications, that I could have done anything to make myself feel like I'd made a difference to this outcome that I wanted to happen, right? That I could recover well and get home quickly and everything would be smooth, and I would have done anything. So yeah, it's amazing to be a part of. And the app was developed again with patient focus groups, and I brought in everyone and anyone I can from the community. I'm like, yeah, running focus groups, anyone want to join? And it's so good, because everything that they said in those groups we've been able to action in the app, and we've only just got started. It's gonna build, and yeah, it's really great to be a part of, and know that at that very vulnerable time when people are having these surgeries or just trying to make these decisions, like even just making the decision of implants or my own tissue, I was just so overwhelmed. So yeah, this would have just helped me and felt a bit like a kind of hand holding at that time.
Carly, what's it called and how can people find out more info about it?
So the app and the device are called Bloom43. So the website is www.bloom43.com, but you can find the app in all the app stores. But yeah, I'd recommend signing up to the newsletter as well. Because we send newsletters that are different to healthcare professionals or to patients. So yeah, signing up as well to keep updated on all our news, because things are moving fast. My goodness. Yeah, I think Sahil's coming on this and chatting to you guys, but he's made a move to America. Yeah, it's really exciting to be a part of something that's going to help so many people.
Carly, we're coming to the end of the episode. We always like to end with top tips for our guests and listeners. What do you have for anyone listening?
As I'm a patient, I'll give a top tip to the patients. If they're going for radiotherapy, because it was a top tip that I was told when I was finding it so hard, is that just clear your diary. Just don't underestimate how tough it might be. I should say might, because maybe some people do find it really a breeze, and that makes me so happy. But I was told when I was kind of broken to the healthcare professional in the radiotherapy team, she said it builds after it finishes. The side effects. She was just like, just clear your diary and watch some TV and just do that. And I did. And I am very grateful I did, because that tiredness did get worse before it got better. So my top tip, it is not just radiotherapy. It is pretty intense treatment still.
Thank you. And I suppose reiterating what you said earlier, for therapeutic radiographers, if you have a patient is taken off their top things, help them to the bed so they're not feeling like they're walking around naked.
Yeah.
And they're not quite ready for that.
Yeah.
That's definitely something that will stick in my head.
To be fair to my team, they did that. I was able to still wear the gown until I lay down and then just opened up when I was in position. So, and that did massively help. I would have felt so naked, just, walking around with my top half off completely.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for coming on, Carly. It's been great to have you on.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been so great to talk to you both.
So thank you everyone for listening to Rad Chat with me, Julka-Anderson and Jo McNamara. So our next guest to feature will be Juliet Duzomo as part of our Living With and Beyond Cancer series, talking about her experience with breast cancer. So thanks all for listening and take care. You can use this episode as part of our free continual professional development accredited content, which offers flexible learning that fits your busy schedule. Just check out the show notes for the reflective questions, links to literature and resources, and a link to complete the form to receive your accredited certificate.
Stay up to date with the latest radiotherapy and oncology advancements by liking and following us on social media channels and hitting subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.
Join a supportive community designed by professionals who understand the unique challenges of radiotherapy and oncology. Check out our website www.radchat.co.uk. Together, we're actively working to improve our profession and make a lasting positive impact on cancer care.
It goes without saying that we can't achieve this alone. It takes all of us working together to create real change. That's why we value every voice and every contribution. We ask that you listen and learn, spread the word, share your story, and if you need to, contact us.
If you like what we're doing, buy us a coffee, keep us caffeinated, go to our website to find out more. Thank you all for listening and take care.